Up next, we have Mark Hecker, who is the founder and executive director of Reach Incorporated and inaugural urban innovator, which reminds me that I need to give a shout out to two lovely people in the room, Patty Fornegra and Whitney Parnell, who are both in the inaugural class of urban innovators as well. If we can give them a quick round of applause. And I'll turn it over to Mark.
Thanks. You never want to follow the teenager to talk about how teenagers are important. Like, that just doesn't actually work. I was really excited to learn that we actually only have one former Reach tutor at Capital City. Turns out they're good friends, so it's exciting to know you know Mylea, and we have that connection. So I'm here to talk about a big idea. I run an organization, and you'll see that woven through, but the big idea is about the need to sort of flip a tendency in our schools, and that tendency is to expect good behavior from kids and then give them additional responsibility. And how I'd like to flip that is that we should give them additional responsibility first in the hope that that will create the behavior we're looking for. And in order to do that, I think four things are necessary. It needs to be social, it needs to be relevant, it needs to be developmentally appropriate, and it needs to be supported. First thing, social, is pretty easy. It turns out if you all remember being teenagers, you actually only really cared about other teenagers. And that's where sort of your meaning came from, that's where the world mattered to you. Which means that anytime you're trying to actually create positive change, you have to do it with a cohort. You have to do it with a group of people, not focus on picking off individual people and trying to improve. At Reach, a big part of that is that our kids call it the Reach family, but all of our work is in cohorts. We do nothing where kids stand alone, we do nothing where it stands alone, and we make them necessary by nature. So at Reach, we actually train struggling high school students to be elementary school reading tutors and children's book authors. And we basically hand them the literacy crisis we have in this city and say, we need you to solve this. We need you to actually fix this problem. And because that matters to them, they step up in a way that they wouldn't otherwise, and they have a community with which to step up to do that. We also need it to be relevant. We need our teenagers to be able to focus on things on which they think they're expert. Their story and their experience are things they are expert in. So if you want to know what it's like to be a struggling elementary school reader, talk to a struggling reader and put them in charge of it. And we make it relevant in that important way. The other thing we have is this amazing accountability system that we've all heard of, all the accountability systems in schools. We have tests, we have point systems, we have all these wonderful things. Wonderful was in quotes and sarcastic there. What I found to be the most effective, without doubt, accountability system in the world is a 7-year-old that gets pissed when you don't show up for work. Because that 7-year-old who cares about you and runs and tackles you and hugs you every day when you come to tutor them after school will not let you off the hook if you make the decision to go somewhere else. And that's something that actually matters to the kids, because that kid lives in your building or on your block or went to your elementary school. And that matters to them in a way different than most of the accountability systems we currently use. I think it's also important to recognize that if you're trying to work with teenagers and you want them to show more positive behavior, if you want them to sort of focus on their future and step up in the world, you can't ask them to sacrifice their ego. So if you want to celebrate something, you should celebrate something for a group of people. Because both positive and negative, very few teens like stepping out solo. It's not their developmental stage, they make meaning in collaboration with other people. So as an example, we decided that we thought diversity in children's books was an issue. And Reach's approach to that is that we put the teens in charge. So in the last 4 years, we've authored and published 17 children's books written by DC teenagers. What we do is we write all of those in teens. So when our kids are nominated for national awards, when they're invited to speak at events, when they're invited to be out in front of people, they do that as a group. When we give them shine, when we celebrate them, when we pass compliments and tell their teachers about the great things they're doing, no one ever feels alone in that moment. They feel like I'm part of a group that's experiencing that plus, and therefore it's a little easier to take. And last, I'll say that we need appropriate support. Raise your hand if when you're a teenager you didn't push boundaries. Thank you. We know that's going to happen. That's the nature, right? If you set a rule, teenagers will break it, which means everything we do in this world must anticipate friction. The way we do that at Reach is you cannot be fired, which means I've been cursed out, I've been everything you can imagine. And then I say, we need to talk tomorrow, I'll see you at 3:30. Because you show up. You don't push kids away, you keep bringing them back. And by proving permanence, by showing that you're part of this, we give you responsibility, we trust you to do great things, even when you don't act like you deserve it, they eventually will earn it and step up to what you expect from them. Looking forward to talking more when we get on the panel.